Hey Insurance, this is Amy Waninger, and I am filling in for Tony Kanyas while he is on vacation this week. Today I want to talk to you about how we describe ourselves and how others describe us. And, Tony, for those of you who know him personally, has a level of ego and enthusiasm that amuses and intrigues me, frankly. And this is the subject of much musing between the two of us. But what I've noticed is when I introduce myself, I'll introduce myself as someone who works to advance diversity and inclusion in the insurance industry. And Tony will introduce me as, the leading thought leader, expert on diversity and inclusion in insurance in the world, or something ridiculous like that. In my mind, ridiculous. Tony was telling me a story about one time when he wrote his own recommendation letter. And this was back in high school. He wrote a recommendation letter for college, and the teacher that was going to sign the letter joked with him about, how glowing the recommendation letter was, and went ahead and signed it. But that got me to thinking, because I know that a lot of us write our own recommendation letters, or we have other people write recommendation letters for us to sign because we're busy and the people who want to recommend us are busy. And so a lot of times if people ask me for a letter of recommendation, I'll say, why don't you write down what you would want me to say in that letter, and I'll review it and edit and sign it. And so when I think about the letter that Tony probably wrote for himself and the letter that I would probably write for myself, I would imagine that the verbiage and the tone would be drastically different, right? Because Tony uses a lot of superlatives, and he has absolutely no problem promoting himself and talking about what he has done and who he is and what he's passionate about. And while I have no problem promoting myself and talking about what I'm passionate about, I'm not very likely to speak in superlatives. And so we were kicking around this idea that what if, because there's a study that says that when women receive letters of recommendation from their managers, they are more likely to use hedging kinds of words. They're more likely to put qualifiers on the skills and experience and knowledge that women bring to the table. This got me thinking, what if women are writing our own letters of recommendation, and we're putting all of our self-doubt and all of our humility, right, in these letters, whereas men who are writing the letters are putting more in than maybe they think they should, and waiting for somebody to dial them back. And so let's say, two people, if they had, if you were to rank them on job performance on a scale of 1 to 100, and they're both an 80, let's say objectively speaking, they're an 80, and both ask their boss for a letter of recommendation. And the boss says, sure, write it, I'll sign it. And let's say the woman knows she's an 80, right? But she's going to write her letter of recommendation at maybe a confidence level of a 60 or a 70, and then hope that her boss fills in the other 10, right? Whereas the Tony in our scenario is going to go in at 100 and expect the boss to dial him back to an 80. And we're seeing that a lot of trends in letters of recommendation are downplaying women's skills and abilities and qualifying them. I'm wondering, and I'm not blaming women because this is how we're socialized, this is what we do, right? We are supposed to go in humble and let other people build us up. But I'm wondering if we are complicit in this in our own way, and if we are soft pedaling our skills and waiting for someone else to build us up. Now, I don't know what the solution is to this. I would love to see your responses in the comments. First of all, have you ever written your own letter of recommendation? And did you aim high or low? What was the response from the person who was expected to sign it? Did they bump you up in your description of yourself, or did they kind of cut you back to a reasonable, realistic level? And have you ever had this happen where you've had someone else write a letter of recommendation for you to sign? Did you read it carefully? Did you look for gender bias in the person's description of themselves, in the third person description of themselves? We have to find ways to do better by the women in our employ. We have to find ways as women to do better for ourselves and each other. And, I know Tony is frequently speaking out about issues of inequality, especially on gender, and recently even on race and disability and other facets of difference. This is something that we need to be conscious of, because one, if we're doing it to ourselves, we cannot hope to undo it, right? If we're doing it for other people, we need to be champions for them and their skills, and we need to help them play bigger and see themselves as more. What I would challenge you to do today is write your own letter of recommendation. Position it as if you were your boss or an executive that you trust, and write 3 versions. Write a humble version. If that's what's most comfortable for you, start with the most humble version of that letter. What would you say if you knew 100% that this executive would sign your letter? What would that look like? And when you're done with that, put that away. And now I want you to write the Tony Kanyas version of your letter of recommendation that talks about you in superlatives, that says what a great person you are, how good you are at your job, how passionate, all of your accomplishments, all of your results. And then if you still are interested in this, write a middle version and see if you can pick out, where did you hedge, right? Where could you have gone bigger, or should you have gone bigger? And if you're maybe not as comfortable on the higher end of that, on the Tony Kanyas end of superlatives and touting your accomplishments, is there an opportunity for you to play a little bit bigger? This is something I'm going to do. I'm going to do this today, actually. I'm going to write my own letter of recommendation. And I'm going to write it 3 different ways, but I'm going to start with the lowest extreme and then go to the highest, and then find a spot in the middle that I think is about right. And I'm going to ask for feedback on this, because it's important, less important how I see myself when I'm looking for opportunities, and much more important how other people see me and how other people would describe me, especially since I'm in a public facing role as a CEO, as a speaker, as a trainer, and a consultant. It would be much more to my advantage to have someone writing a letter who sees me in those superlatives and who would push me to describe myself that way. That's all I've got for today. Have fun. I would love to hear about your experience. Put it in the comments down there, or send me an email at amy@leadatanylevel.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm right there, Amy C. Waninger. Thank you all so much. Have a fantastic day, and recommend yourself with a little more confidence going forward than you have in the past. Bye.